Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. And also let me know where y'all are watching from and at what time. I'm curious. They say lightning never strikes twice, but I've found that superstition is the last refuge of the uncurious. The night I arrived in Black Hollow, lightning struck 3 times. Once on the road sign, once on a dead oak, and once, I swear, somewhere inside the forest where no man's dared go since the town started whispering about the hoof prints. I was already soaked by the time I pulled off the gravel road. I'd come here chasing rumors, half-choked stories of cloven tracks that appeared after every storm, livestock torn open like party favors, tongues gone missing like it was some bizarre cryptid delicacy. Most people dismissed it. My colleagues certainly did. Cryptozoologists aren't exactly the prom kings of the scientific community, and I had a particular talent for rubbing that in. So there I was, soaked to the bone, phone camera out, kneeling in the mud like an idiot academic with something to prove. But I wasn't hallucinating. The prints were real, hoofed, deep, steaming. Each one was too large to belong to a deer or goat. The rain had just begun, yet the mud was already stamped like something had danced through just moments before I'd arrived. What caught me most, though, was their direction. They were heading toward the town. Not away from the woods, not out into the mountains, but straight into the crooked silhouette of Black Hollow, whose rooftops I could just make out through the mist. I followed the trail a little ways, shoes squelching in the wet grass, wind cutting sharp through my jacket. That's when I heard it. Low, guttural. A sound like a goat having an argument with a chainsaw. It came from somewhere up in the tree line. I'd like to say I stood my ground, but I actually ducked behind a trash bin with all the grace of a man who's dropped his phone in the toilet. I stayed low, heart pounding, rain dripping off the brim of my cap. When the sound faded, I crept forward again. That's when I saw it. A mutilated goat, freshly dead, steaming in the rain. It lay belly up in the grass, eyes gouged out, tongue missing. No blood, no signs of a struggle. It was just opened, like it had been unzipped. I took photos, not because I'm brave, but because I knew if I didn't document this, no one would believe me. Not that anyone ever did. I'd shown photos before, blurry, ambiguous, conveniently timed. But this was different. This was clinical. I stood, wiped my lens, and muttered to myself, "Goatman, if this is you, buddy, we're going to have a long talk." Lightning cracked again, closer this time. The hoof prints led directly into town, and despite every part of me wanting to head back to the car, I followed them. Because ridicule is a hell of a motivator. Black Hollow didn't show up on most GPS maps, and the ones that did feature it treated it like a typo. The kind of place that still had a payphone outside the diner and a dog that chased cars because there was literally nothing else to do. I rolled into town dripping wet and smelling like mildew. The motel was a 2-story concrete block called the Whispering Pines, which was optimistic considering the only trees around looked dead, and no one in this place was doing any whispering. The woman at the front desk gave me a room key and exactly one word: cash. I handed her a crumpled 50. She handed me a room key attached to a block of wood the size of a small cutting board. Room 12, upstairs. The place smelled like wet carpet and regret, but I've slept in jungle hammocks and worse, so I took it in stride. I dried off, changed clothes, and headed into town. There was one bar in Black Hollow, the Hollow Tap Room. It looked like it used to be a hardware store, and just never bothered taking down the nails and screws sign. The place was lit with those old yellow bulbs that make everyone look like they haven't slept in a decade. Fitting, because the folks inside definitely hadn't. I got a few curious stares as I walked in, mostly from older men nursing amber drinks like they'd been sipping the same one since the Nixon era. I was the outsider. I knew the type, quiet, tight-lipped townsfolk who'd seen too much, or maybe just enough to know better than to talk. I took a seat at the bar. That's when I met Cal. Cal was a grizzled guy in his 50s with the kind of beard that said he'd either wrestled a bear or was trying to become one. He slid into the seat beside me like we were old friends. "You're the guy poking around the hoof prints," he said without looking at me. I blinked. "Do I have a sign on me?" He chuckled. "You smell like fear and a goat blood." Fair point. We talked, well, I talked, and he'd made the kind of small comments that felt big. He didn't confirm anything, but he didn't laugh me off either. And for a man who seemed like he lived off squirrel jerky and bad coffee, he had a surprising glint of intelligence in his eyes, like he knew something. "I've seen 'em," he said after his second drink. "Prints in the mud, always after a storm, always fresh, always pointed back here." I frowned. "Back here? You mean toward town?" He nodded. "Ain't that a strange thing, city boy?" I left the bar that night feeling like I was walking through the opening act of a nightmare I'd paid good money to attend. The hoof prints, the dead goat, the locals who didn't speak, and Cal, the hunter with a knowing smile. Something was wrong here, and the worst part, I couldn't wait to find out what. The next morning, Cal swung by the motel in a rusted-out truck that sounded like it was powered by spite and chewing tobacco. I hopped in without asking questions. The man said he had something to show me, and if there's one thing you learn as a cryptozoologist, it's that when a man with a twitchy eye and a shotgun says, "You gotta see this," you go see it. We drove a few miles out to a rundown farm on the edge of Black Hollow. The sky was gray with the threat of another storm. I smelled the rot before we even got out of the truck. The cow was lying on its side, steam rising off its belly in the morning cold. The farmer, an old man with hands like bricks and a permanent scowl, just pointed at it and said, "Do your thing, goat hunter." That's me now, apparently, the goat hunter. The cow's tongue was gone. Its eyes were glassy and wide, lips curled like it had seen something it couldn't believe even as it died. No blood around the body, no signs of a struggle, just a huge gash running from neck to stomach like a zipper had been ripped down. And the hoof prints. I crouched by them. Clear, clean, deep. Bigger than any goat or deer I'd ever tracked. 4 toes, split down the center. They circled the cow once, then led away. Back toward town. "Still think it's some mangy dog?" I asked Cal, glancing up. He didn't answer, just stared off into the woods, chewing on a toothpick like it was a moral dilemma. "Whatever it is," he muttered, "it don't hunt for food, just fun." We got back around noon. Cal dropped me off with a grunt and a nod. I spent the rest of the afternoon poring over the photos I'd taken, trying to make sense of it all. The tongue thing bothered me. Why just the tongue? Why always so clean? A predator kills to feed or defend. This was something else. I was still stewing when I stepped out to grab a soda from the vending machine outside the motel. That's when I saw them. Hoof prints. In the concrete walkway, in the mud patch below the stairs, and God help me, on the balcony right outside my second-floor room. I froze. The prints were wet, fresh, like something had been up there just moments ago. My room light was still on, and for a split second, I swore I saw movement through the curtain. I bolted upstairs like a man 30 years younger and 5 IQ points dumber, kicked open the door, ready to swing my camera bag like it was a mace, but the room was empty. Just my laptop, the mess of notes on the desk, and the steady dripping of the bathroom faucet. No signs of entry, no broken lock, just the prints, leading toward the door, not away. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the door like it was a countdown timer, waiting for it to creak open on its own. I left the lights on, the TV humming low, and sat with my laptop in my lap like a digital security blanket. At some point I started researching the tongue thing again, digging deeper than usual. Goats missing tongues, cows missing tongues, hoof prints in the mud, eyes removed. I started finding patterns, not in modern cases but in old folklore, real backwoods stuff, Appalachian shadow stories, whispered warnings carved into the margins of forgotten books. That's when I found it, the Goatman, a regional variant of the satyr myths, but darker, sadistic, a shapeshifter, a trickster. It didn't just kill. It played, it mocked, it mimicked, loved using the voices of people its victims knew. The closer it got, the more familiar the voice became, like a horrible game of Marco Polo, but the prize was evisceration. One bit stuck with me. The Goatman seeks not flesh but fear. It feeds on humiliation, dread, the slow uncoiling of reason. Another entry in a badly translated backwoods text said it hated being mocked. It was a creature of ridicule but despised being laughed at in return. It wanted fear, obedience, not jokes. Well, that was unfortunate considering I cope with most things in life through jokes and sarcasm. The next morning I decided to walk out to Ash Hollow Woods. Cal had mentioned it the night before in passing, like it was a name you weren't supposed to say too loud. A cluster of old trees at the far edge of town. Locals said the soil there went sour. Some trees refused to grow straight. Sound carried weird. Perfect spot for a cryptid Airbnb. I packed my gear, camera, field recorder, my old camcorder with night vision, 2 protein bars, a flask of coffee, and my lucky red pen. Not for protection. I just like it. As I walked, I noticed claw marks on the trees. Long, deliberate gouges in the bark, each 3 marks wide, spaced like fingers. Some trees had been scorched, blackened with strange symbols burned deep into the wood. Not drawn, burned, like something had seared them in with glowing claws. I found bones, too, tiny ones, bird bones, hung from strings like wind chimes, clacking together in the breeze. And yet, no sound, no bird song, no wind in the trees. Just that eerie stillness that wraps around you like a cold, wet blanket. Then, just ahead, I heard it. "Danny." A woman's voice, soft, kind, familiar. My mother's voice. My mother who had died 10 years ago. I stopped cold. My breath caught. My hand tightened around my camera. The voice called again, lilting, loving. "Danny, honey, come here." I turned and bolted in the opposite direction. My bag thumped against my back. Something laughed behind me, not loudly, not human, like a goat trying to sound like a man. I didn't stop running until I saw the cave. The entrance to the cave was hidden behind a curtain of dead ivy and hanging moss, like the woods themselves had tried to bury it. A natural gash in the rock face, wide enough for a man to crawl through, though barely. My heart was still pounding from the run. The trees behind me stood still as statues, as if waiting to see what I'd do next. Now any sane person would have turned around and jogged back to town for a cup of coffee and a sturdy chair to cry into. But cryptozoology doesn't reward the sane. It rewards the stupidly determined. So I pulled out my flashlight, clicked it on, and crawled in. The air inside was damp and smelled like old iron and moldy straw. I crouched, moving slowly, the cave walls tightening around me until I had to shuffle sideways like I was squeezing through the earth's throat. The light revealed claw marks along the stone, long, deliberate, unnatural. Something had been down here, and it hadn't come for the scenery. After maybe 20 feet, the tunnel widened. I stepped into a hollow chamber lit with half-melted lanterns hung on rusted hooks. Bones littered the floor, animal bones mostly. Deer, rabbits, and at least one small human femur. All carved with strange runes, spirals, and jagged symbols etched deep into the bone like it had been done slowly, with care. I swallowed and reminded myself. Documentation. Proof. This was the motherlode, the kind of discovery that would wipe the smug smiles off my colleagues' faces. I raised my camera, and then I heard it. My voice, clear, crisp, like I was narrating a documentary in a mocking tone. "Look at him, the mighty goat hunter, fumbling around in the dirt like a blind mole." I froze. Then another voice joined it, my mother's again, cloying and sweet. "You always were such a disappointment, Danny." I spun, flashlight beam cutting across the stone. No one there, just the echoes curling around me like smoke. The voices overlapped, laughing, shifting. Then came Cal's voice, low and amused. "Didn't think it'd be this easy." I backed toward the tunnel. My boot crunched on a rib cage, snapping it in two. The laughter stopped instantly. Silence. Then a wet, dragging sound. From deeper in the cavern. I turned and ran. The walls pulsed past me. My light flickered. My bag banged against my hip with every step. I hit a dead end, spun back, tried another turn. Each tunnel looked the same. The air thickened. I was being herded, pushed through this maze like a rat toward some awful center. The voices came again, closer this time, not echoing now. They were in the walls, above me, behind me. I ducked into a side tunnel and stopped to breathe, forcing my panic down. That's when I remembered the old folklore. The Goatman doesn't just hunt. He plays, he mimics, he mocks. And if it loves to mock, maybe it hates being mocked in return. The tunnel opened into another chamber, and this one felt different. The ceiling arched higher here, lined with ancient stonework, too angular, too deliberate to be natural. This wasn't just a cave. Someone or something had carved it. The walls were covered in soot-blackened symbols, burned into the stone with what looked like claw marks. More lanterns flickered in alcoves, casting jittery shadows that danced across the bone-strewn floor like marionettes on strings. At the center of the chamber stood a twisted stone altar, and around it, bones. Dozens of skulls, all carved with spirals and jagged runes. Goat skulls, deer skulls, human ones. Each one grinning in the glow like they were in on some cosmic joke I wasn't part of yet. I moved slowly, breathing through my nose. The stench was thick and sweet like rotting fruit left in the sun. I stepped over what looked like a child's jawbone and aimed my recorder toward the altar. And then I heard myself laugh. Not just a laugh, my laugh. That awkward, wheezy chuckle I do when I've just made a joke no one asked for. It echoed around the chamber like it had bounced off something large and amused. A new voice joined it. My mother's again. "You always chased shadows, Danny, even when you were little." Then Cal's voice, dripping with contempt. "So eager to prove them all wrong, huh? Even if it gets you gutted like a pig." I dropped to a crouch behind the altar, breath shaking. My recorder was still on. A shape slithered past the entrance behind me, just a flicker in the light. Too tall, too narrow. Its shadow moved like it wasn't attached to anything real. I clicked my recorder off and shoved it in my bag. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then held steady. "Okay," I told myself. "You're a man of science, right?" Well, science just left the building screaming and throwing its clipboard. The laughter continued, my voice again, laughing harder this time, like it was delighted to see me scared, like this was the punchline. I pressed myself against the stone, brain racing. The Goatman didn't just want to kill me. It wanted to humiliate me first, toy with me, make me break before it broke my bones. But it hated being mocked. I remembered that part. I slid my recorder back out, hit record. Then as softly as I could, I whispered into the mic. "Big, scary Goatman, more like barnyard bargain bin. Hope you enjoy playing with bones, 'cause that's the only dating life you're getting." Yeah, not my best burn, but I was working under pressure. I slipped the recorder into a crevice by the wall, hit play, and cranked the volume. The cave echoed with its own mockery. The Goatman's voices, the ones it had used to taunt me, now twisted back at it, looped and loud. Then came a roar, low, furious, wounded. I ran. I don't know if you've ever been chased by a supernatural, voice-stealing forest demon through a maze of death-scented caves, but let me tell you, it's one hell of a cardio routine. The moment I heard that roar, everything shifted. The mocking laughter stopped, the lights flickered, the air in the cavern turned electric, humming with fury. The Goatman didn't like my little joke. Apparently, narcissistic cryptids don't handle being trolled. I sprinted through the tunnels, choosing random turns like a rat with stage fright. Behind me, something thundered down the stone passages, hoofbeats echoing an angry, uneven rhythm. Too fast, too loud, too close. My recorder was still playing, its loop of cruel voices bouncing around the chamber I'd left behind. It must have confused him. Him? It? Whatever. The thing. It didn't expect its own weapons used against it. I rounded a corner, breath ragged, and nearly slipped on a slick patch of moss. Slapped a hand to the wall and kept going. I had no map, no bearings. Just instinct and a very basic desire not to die grotesquely underground. Something ahead glowed faintly, another lantern. I ducked toward it and found myself in a narrower tunnel. It felt older here, less traveled. The walls were smoother, the carvings more abstract, spirals within spirals, like something ancient had tried to draw madness itself. The roar came again, closer now, but not behind me, above me. I looked up. There were holes in the ceiling, shafts and cracks like tunnels punched through the rock at odd angles. One of them pulsed with red light, and from it came the sound of dragging hooves and labored breath. It was trying to cut me off. It knew the cave better than I did. Of course it did. This was its playground, and I was the mouse in its maze. I ducked into a side tunnel and tried to buy myself time. Pulled out my phone, not for reception, but to use the voice recorder again. I had one last idea. I hit record and spoke into it, low and sharp. "You're not scary, you're just sad. A walking joke with horns. No wonder you have to fake your friends." Then I played it back. It was my voice again, dripping sarcasm, bouncing off the cave walls. I wedged the phone into a crack between stones and bolted back the way I came. The idea was simple. Give it 2 sources of bait. Let it hear me in 2 places. Let it choose wrong. Behind me, the roar rose to a scream. Hoofbeats thundered past another tunnel opening. The cave shook, rocks tumbled. I kept running, breath hitching, lungs begging for a break they wouldn't get. As I reached what I hoped was the entrance, I heard it slam into the wall where my phone was playing, an impact that shook the whole cave. The recorder stopped. Silence followed. Then came the sound of slow, deliberate steps, but not toward me, away, toward the insult. It had taken the bait. I didn't stop to celebrate. When you trick a sadistic trickster demon into chasing an insult instead of your squishy, terrified body, you don't stick around to accept a trophy. You run like your pants are on fire and your legs are negotiating terms with your lungs. The tunnel narrowed again, scraping my shoulders. My flashlight dimmed, flickering in protest. I smacked it against my thigh like that would help. Because, of course, in the middle of fleeing a supernatural creature, my brain thought, "Have you tried percussive maintenance?" The light flared back to life. I rounded a bend and blessedly, finally, saw the pale gray gleam of daylight ahead. I nearly cried. Behind me I could still hear it. The Goatman. It had realized it had been duped, and boy, it did not like that. The screams it made weren't angry, they were offended, like I'd left a 1-star review on its torture Airbnb. The walls vibrated with its fury, a low-frequency hum that rattled my molars. Bones cracked under my boots. Lanterns blew out in their sconces, snuffed by a wind that didn't belong underground. "Come on," I muttered. "Almost there. Just a few more feet and I can die somewhere slightly less horrifying." The tunnel sloped upward. I scrambled like a panicked crab, slipping on mud and moss. My hand slammed against a jagged rock, drawing blood. I didn't care. The light grew brighter, fresher, real. And then I burst out of the cave like a champagne cork under pressure, sprawling into the grass and dry leaves. The sun was hidden behind thick clouds, but it was still the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Air tasted like freedom. Dirt in my mouth? Delicious. I was alive. I didn't pause long. I scrambled to my feet and stumbled toward the tree line, shoes squelching with cave filth. My legs were jelly, and my bag was a swinging weight trying to spin me sideways. But I kept moving. I reached a dirt trail, recognized it. I was close to the old deer blind Cal had pointed out on our first drive. From there, it was maybe a mile or 2 back to town. I made it about halfway before I collapsed near an old fence post. I dropped to my knees, panting, every nerve in my body on fire. But I smiled. I had proof. The cave, the bones, the symbols, the audio. Oh, God. I hoped the recorder was still working. If I could just get back to town, upload it, email it to someone, anyone, I could finally silence the laughter from my colleagues. I could be right. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. Cal's voice called out, "Well, hell, you look like something the dog chewed up and left behind." Relief surged in my chest. I turned, grinning like an idiot. "Cal, you will not believe what I just—" He smiled back. But this time his teeth looked too sharp, and his eyes, they glowed. At first I thought it was just the sunlight playing tricks. My eyes had been in that dark cave for hours. It made sense that things looked weird. That's what I told myself, until Cal stepped closer. The glow didn't fade. If anything, it pulsed, golden red, like embers deep inside his skull. His grin widened slowly, too slowly, as if his skin had to remember how to stretch that way. "Cal?" I asked, voice cracking. He chuckled. "You really are persistent. I'll give you that." I stood frozen, one hand clutching the strap of my bag like it was a weapon. What are you talking about?" He took another step. His shadow fell across mine. "You think the Goatman just lives in some cozy cave like a hairy hermit?" He leaned in slightly. "Oh no, friend, I walk these roads. I sit in those bars. I watch the storm roll in, just waiting to see who gets curious. I took a shaky step back. No, I saw you, in the bar. We drank together. You saw someone, he said with a grin that now seemed looser, like his face was being worn, not grown. But you helped me, I said, the words escaping like steam. I helped you look, he said. There's a difference. It all made sense now. The hoof prints leading back into town, the warnings that always came a little too late, the knowing smirks, the cryptic comments. I hadn't outsmarted the Goatman. He'd been playing me since day one. I stepped back again, feet unsteady on the path. So why the cave, the voices, the games? He tilted his head, and for a moment, his antlers flickered into view. Long, blackened, curling things that shimmered like heat haze before vanishing again. Because I like the game, he said simply. I like watching people squirm, and you're a treat, a real connoisseur of humiliation. You think ridicule drives me mad? He snorted. That's your poison, Danny. You wanted me to see it, I said slowly, realization dawning like a cruel sunrise. You wanted me to record the voices, to think I'd outsmarted you. He bowed mockingly. Congratulations, you're the first who made it out of the cave. My heart pounded in my ears. The recorder was still in my bag. My hand itched toward it, instinct telling me to grab it, swing it, throw it, do something. But Cal, the Goatman, was watching me with the glee of a cat about to ruin a very expensive couch. Why the tongues? I asked, desperate to stall. He smirked. Just to mess with you people. Then, before I could run, scream, or even blink, he lunged. He moved faster than anything that size had a right to. One moment he was standing, all smug smiles and glowing eyes, and the next he was airborne. Legs tucked, antlers unfurling like twisted branches, teeth bared. I dove sideways, hit the ground hard and rolled, scraping my arm on a jagged rock. Pain bloomed up my side, but adrenaline turned it into white noise. My bag flung loose in the dirt, the recorder inside skidding just out of reach. The Goatman, landed where I'd stood, the earth crunching beneath his hooves. He turned, grinning like he'd just won a carnival prize. Running again, he said, voice smooth, pleasant. Like we were still sitting in the tap room sipping warm beer and swapping ghost stories. I pushed up to my knees. It's kind of my thing. He cocked his head. You came looking for proof, didn't you? You wanted your big discovery, your name in books, your face on documentaries with cheesy soundtracks. I looked at the recorder just a few feet away, so close. And you gave it to me, I said through gritted teeth. He chuckled. I did. But the thing about stories, Danny, is that they're better when no one believes them. He lunged again, and I kicked up a spray of dirt into his face. Not exactly heroic, but effective. He snarled and reeled back, swiping at his eyes. I scrambled for the recorder, grabbed it, and did the only thing I could think of. I hit play. My voice rang out, shaky but clear. You're not scary. You're just sad. A walking joke with horns. The Goatman froze. His smile twitched. His antlers flickered. I turned the volume up. The insults echoed around us, bouncing through the trees now, not the cave. Cal's face contorted, first in confusion, then rage. His form shimmered, warping between man and beast, between hunter and horror. I watched his skin ripple like heat on asphalt, watched his limbs twitch and snap, and then he laughed, not mockingly, not cruelly, but genuinely. You're fun, he said, grinning wide. I haven't had fun in years. I didn't reply, just stood there, recorder playing, heart thumping. He took a step back, then another. You're not ready to die yet, are you? No, I said, but I'll go down swinging. He nodded, almost respectfully. Next time, Danny. And just like that, he vanished. One moment he was there, grinning at me with glowing eyes, and the next, the woods were empty. Silent. The recorder clicked off. I stood alone on the trail, every nerve on fire, wondering if I'd finally lost my mind, or if I'd just survived a nightmare carved into folklore. I never did go back to the university, never sent the recordings, never gave the interview I once dreamed of. Some things aren't meant to be shared, but sometimes in thunderstorms I hear hoofbeats, and sometimes late at night I see a familiar figure standing at the edge of the woods, smiling, waiting,